Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Lots of takeaways today with Dr. Natalie Greenberg from the Center for New Medicine in Orange County, California. She works with one of my very first podcast guests, Dr. Lee Erin Keneally. And what I loved about Dr. Greenberg's message is she got into medicine because she was so sick. She was actually a journalism major, switched it out, and decided to end up going into medicine. What I loved about her message is we talked about the emotional aspect of cancer and how healing negative emotions can actually turn your body into a healing machine. She shared a great story about one of her patients who had prostate cancer, and they did this EVOX therapy, which is kind of like a biofeedback and taking you through kind of just healing some emotional stuff in your past. And now her patient has clean scans. So that's something I'm going to pay attention to. If that means that, I might have a little emotional stuff to clean up in my earlier life, boy, makes me highly motivated to do it. She also talked about some really simple things we can do each day. Both of them were free to lower our risk of all types of diseases. So hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Welcome, Dr. Natalie Greenberg from probably one of my favorite healthcare clinics in the country, the Center for New Medicine in Orange County. You work with Dr. Lee Erin Keneally, who was one of my first podcast guests. So Dr. Greenberg, welcome to Why Did I Get Cancer?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'd love to know, what drew you into medicine in the first place?
Absolutely. So mine is kind of an interesting story, and it's definitely a personal one. I was not planning to go into medicine. I did not think that was my career path or my life path, but I will say medicine kind of found me. So I was actually in New York at Columbia University studying journalism when I was living in a moldy dorm room. And so that's when it first started for me. And I really actually couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I had random symptoms growing up, lots of joint pain. Everyone said was growing pains, some strange GI symptoms that, of course, nobody really thought was anything to be concerned about. But when I did go away to college and the stress of college, the stress of living in New York, constant stimuli, I just really became kind of non-functional. And so I was getting through classes and then going home and crashing at the end of the day. And so first year of college was really tough. I came home over the summer and was just really trying to recover, figure out what was going on. I started working with a naturopathic doctor. And I had been holistic my whole life. My mom, luckily, was very into integrative medicine her whole life. And so bestowed that upon myself as well. But just starting to work with a naturopathic doctor, I thought it was so fascinating. And so then I actually started working at her front desk as my summer job and was just listening to all her consults and trying to read all her treatment plans and research supplements and figure out what she was doing and what this medicine even really was and what it could teach me. And so luckily, this naturopathic doctor was very open to me kind of using her license and experimenting with a lot of the tools she had. And so that's how I got interested in it, is I just became my own little project. And I had been going to so many doctors during that time and just really couldn't figure out, root cause, what was wrong. I was talking about my symptoms, unfortunately, largely written off, which I hear from patients every day. It's amazing. I always say, woman, everything can be fixed with an antidepressant or birth control. You can pretty much solve every condition, every symptom.
Isn't that, yes, in traditional medicine, absolutely, but clearly not at the Center for New Medicine.
Right. Don't recommend either one of those things. But I, just kept searching and researching. And then eventually this naturopathic doctor was just pushing, me into it and kind of said, you love this so much. And you can tell that I was researching all day, every day, just trying to get all the information I could. I traveled the world to try and heal myself, pulling different therapies from all over the place. I definitely tried some of the most extreme things in my treatment protocols, from Lyme and mold disease, which was, I did bee venom therapy for Lyme disease, very fringe, self-led, really interesting therapy. I did Reich treatments, lots of energy work, definitely IV therapies, supplement protocols. I tried every diet under the sun, lots of fasting, so many amazing tools, and really just kept learning and experimenting.
And so you really, you kind of went out on your own then to figure out these different kind of potential healing modalities.
Yes. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get answers from any of the doctors I was really trying to see.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And, so you basically became your own doctor to try to figure this out. And then how did it go? Like, how's your health today, if you don't mind me asking?
So I say health is a journey, and I'm always experimenting and trying, and there are ups and downs. But right now I'm in an amazing place. I mean, I'm here working all day, every day. At my lowest point, I was essentially bedridden. I had one chair in my house that I sat in all day, every day, and that lasted about a year. When I walked outside the house, I made it to the end of the block, and I had to turn around because I just had no energy. And my mom would drag me and go, you have to get outside. You have to move. This isn't okay. But, I feel for my patients who are going through it. Your body gives out at a certain point. And that's absolutely what happened.
And you were so young and you felt like your body was giving out. So imagine somebody who's, over the age of 60, they probably just think, oh, well, I'm over 60, like my body's supposed to be giving out. But we also know through research that that's not correct.
Right. No, that is exactly. And all these symptoms that we've normalized that are part of aging are really signals that the body is giving us that something's out of balance and something's not right. And so we have to listen to all those. We don't want to be concerned about every single one of them, but we have to listen to them and pay attention to what the body is telling us.
Well, Dr. Greenberg, you make a good point. How do you maybe listen to the signals and act without overreacting?
So that's something I had to learn, because what starts to happen once you've dealt with a chronic illness is every little symptom you get becomes an alarm signal, and your cells and your mind freak out. And so a lot of what I have patients do is the nervous system work, the limbic system work, and really the emotional work. And I think it's the most overlooked part of healing and the first thing patients write off, but it really is the most important. Because what starts to happen is you're creating in your subconscious this idea that you're not safe within your own body. And that all these symptoms that are coming up are signals that there's really something pathologically wrong. And so I had to work on that part of retraining my nervous system and saying, I'm safe within my body and I am healing and I am okay. And then if symptoms persisted for, weeks to months, then I go, okay, something's got to change. I've really got to lean into this and pay attention. But if I just wake up in the morning and I have a bit of a stuffy nose, it doesn't mean I need to go to the doctor.
Right. So just, I guess, discernment. You're talking about discernment and it sounds like time. Just like, okay, if this persists over a few weeks, then yeah, I need to go and talk to somebody. So you're basically talking about talking yourself off the wall.
Every day. Yep.
Every day. Okay. And I'm an overreactor.
Guilty.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Let's go talk about our problems. But I have a tendency to overreact. And as my husband's listening to this, he's probably like, tee-hee, understatement of the year. But so talking yourself off the wall is a really good thing. Do you incorporate, how do you calm your nervous system down?
So there are lots of different tools that I've played with throughout the years and really just tried to figure out what works best for me. Mm-hmm. There are a few things that I commonly pull, I say the little tools in my toolbox. One of them is journaling. So just getting it out of, on paper and out of my mind. So a lot of times that will resolve it. Like, oh no, I was just kind of stewing on this, thinking on it all the time. So it manifested within the body. So if I can just write it and get it out, then that helps. Breath work, definitely one of the best techniques, especially because when we're in that state of repeating things in our mind over and over again and stuck in that symptom pattern, then we're chest breathing all the time.
So true.
I do physical exams on my patients, and I'm, just listening to their lungs from a very medicine standpoint, just trying to hear if their lungs are clear. But it's amazing how many people, they can't get any air into their lower lungs. So I always point that out to them. I'm like, you hyperventilating all day, every day, the body can't heal from that state. And so when we talk about, the vagus nerve and trying to balance that sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, one of the best ways to activate the parasympathetic nervous system is just deep belly breathing, which is how we should be breathing all day, every day.
All day, every day. Yeah. That is fascinating. Yeah, we don't. And we get caught up in a situation, or we're stuck in traffic and I'm late for a podcast or whatever it is. And I can really work myself into a state. And as a cancer survivor, that's the last thing I need to do, is to put my body into a state where it's creating just chaos inside my cells.
Absolutely. And, I say what you think, you become. So if we're constantly in this state of thinking about these symptoms and thinking about the disease, we, to a certain point, manifest it. And our subconscious is so powerful, and it's programming the conscious mind all day, every day. So that's why, also when we're journaling, or when we're trying to calm the body down, we have to speak as though it's in the past, that we are healed, right? We are okay. We've made it through whatever it is that the situation is that we're concerned about, because then we reprogram that, and then symptoms tend to fall away.
That's good advice. Yeah. So really, really flipping it on its side of, instead of me going down this, I call it the Tigger or the Eeyore, instead of going down the Eeyore path where, oh my gosh, I feel a lump, or I feel this, or I feel that. Okay, let's go Tigger, and okay, if this doesn't go away, and go see a doctor, and really just believing, positive mindset, just really staying focused on being positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would imagine you get to employ all kinds of the latest modalities and techniques and things when it comes to chronic disease. And so can you tell us about some of the techniques you're most excited about?
So I call it Disneyland here, because we have so many modalities and so many little toys.
You do.
Rides you can go on when you come to the center, and they are all incredible. So I started here at the Center for New Medicine actually as a student preceptor. I was just getting my hours for school, and I only needed about 20 hours. And so I finished those very quick. And then I told them here, I said, I just want to keep coming. I want to keep learning all that you have. Because I had never been to a place with this many different tools and modalities to help people heal. And what I was seeing was just incredible with the results. And so I came, and for a year, just came twice a week, every week, learning and watching all the different practitioners and learning about the modalities. And, then that inspired me to come work here. And I told them they couldn't get rid of me, and I needed a job. So that's how I got here. But now I'm still, we always bring on new different modalities and toys. And I would say a couple of the most amazing tools that we have here are really, one is evox to address the emotional component. Because like I said, we just really, that's the first thing that we write off. I would say, especially our male patients tend to be very guilty of that, saying, no, we've got it all under control. It's fine. What we're doing here with the evox, which vox is the Latin word for voice. And the E component comes from the fact that we use technology to kind of speed up this whole program and resolve the emotional trauma much quicker. Mm-hmm. But so what you do is you put your hand on a little cradle. It looks like a computer mouse with a handprint on it. And as you're speaking to the practitioner, it's actually mapping your brain waves and frequencies on the computer screen. So we're able to figure out where is the problem. Yeah, immediately.
You have got to be kidding. That is like, I am geeking out over here. You're right. This is Disneyland.
It is Disneyland. And so this is all based on biofeedback, and we're immediately able to figure out, where is the trauma, where are the unfavorable frequencies within the brain, and then how are we going to fix them? Mm-hmm. And so we get affirmations that you will repeat to yourself once you go home. I like to always recommend patients, utilize emotional freedom technique or tapping, where you're using the acupressure points while you're saying these affirmations. And then as a part of the actual therapy within that 1 hour session, you're receiving binaural beats through the headphones and then frequencies through that little hand cradle to actually, in that time, real time, reprogramming those unfavorable frequencies. And so one session of that is equivalent to 3 to 5 therapy sessions. And it's amazing the things that we're able to uncover and then the results that we get so quickly.
Really? And how old is this Evox technique?
Evox has been around for years, so it's actually based on the Zytoscan, which you can use to test imbalances within the bodies. We can use to test what products are going to be most important for you to support healing. But Evox has been around for a long, long time, and it's a really incredible technique.
Can you tell us about any success stories you've seen with using it?
Oh my gosh, there have been so many. So a lot of, what we think about here is that any sort of traumas or emotional stresses, they get stored within the body unless you resolve them, right? Mm-hmm. So the work of Dr. van der Kolk with The Body Keeps the Score was talking all about this, how emotions and traumas get stuck within the body and they have to be processed out. And so then when you correlate that with the work of Dr. Hammer in German New Medicine, then you realize, all of these cancer patients that now have disease in some organ, it's commonly associated with some sort of trauma, stressor, life event about 8 to 10 years in the past, because cancer is about 10 years in the making. And so for breast cancer, as an example, it was unrest in the nest. So whether that's an issue with a parent or a child or a spouse or another family member, there's something chaotic within whatever your own nest is that's leading to this dysfunction and pathology within the body on a very real physical level. And so I would say the amount of times that we're able to correlate, some sort of emotional trauma relating to anger in the liver and liver cancer, or unrest in the nest with the breast, or, a traumatic event with a child with prostate cancer, it is really profound. And then we're able to just talk patients out of that. And that's by resolving those stored traumas and stored frequencies within the body, because the body's an electrical being. And if we have that trapped frequency and emotion and trauma, it disrupts the ability of the cells to communicate from the most basic level. And so prostate cancer is one I see resolve very well with the emotional component.
Really?
And then, and then in terms of just chronic illness, the Lyme disease and mold toxicity, absolutely, because it affects the nervous system, which then affects the immune system. And so if I can't get the patients to rebalance their nervous system, no matter how many amazing supplements or protocols I give them, they're not going to get to the end, because there's going to be something new that triggers that nervous system that's going to restart the whole pathway.
Right. And you hear that word trigger all the time. I say it too, that phrase is triggering me or whatever. So are you saying that you could go through this protocol, this Evox protocol, and not really have triggers?
Because it's just a reframe. It's a reframe of your perspective of all the stimuli coming at you all day, every day. And I was just working with a patient yesterday who had long COVID, and she was like, all of a sudden, I walk into a room now and I pay attention to everything, and everything feels like an attack on the body. And I'm like, because the nervous system is so overloaded. And so we should be able to walk into a room and analyze all the stimuli that are presented at us and then choose what we want to focus on. But when the nervous system is out of balance, every single stimuli is an attack and is a trigger on the body. And so we have to recalibrate.
Recalibrate and reframe. So what you're saying too is we have to learn to pause. Because if we just create this overreaction, snowball, you have no time to pause. You don't even know what pause is. And you're probably breathing just up here into your chest. So your body cannot cooperate with this reframe because you're running a mile a minute.
Yes, between stimuli and response, there's a space. And that's where we're trying to live, is within that space to allow you to choose how you respond. And that's, when you speak, it's when you're, just healing in the way that you feel, it's foundational. But we don't really live like that in general nowadays. And we have too many stimuli, unfortunately.
We have so much, Dr. Greenberg, so much, it's just, I can't even really go to the mall. Like, it's just the lights, the smells, the people. I maybe once a year good at the mall. It keeps me up. Like, I'll get home and I'll be awake all night. So yeah, too much stimulus. Yeah. Okay, I think most of you know that I have been looking for a water filter for so long, and I've been really picky about my water, mainly because I got tested for glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. I got tested for that about a year ago, and I was in the 95th percentile, which is not good. Not 95th percentile good, 95th percentile bad. So I was working with my physician, my naturopath, on how to get it out. She said, look, I know you eat a mainly organic diet. What else could you be doing? Are you spraying your yard? We absolutely do not spray our yard. And I'm also really careful when I drive by people who are spraying their yard, or maybe it's a municipality, I roll up my windows and I put on my recirculated air. So we determined maybe it was water. So I researched and I found this filter that actually can remove glyphosate from the water. It's called Barreau. Again, I did my research. I love this filter. It's beautiful. It sits right on my counter. It's amazing. And the water, you know what? The water tastes like nothing, which that's what you want in water. I know people say the water tastes great. I don't want it to taste anything. I just want it to be water. The other reason that I chose the Barreau filter is that it removes 99% of heavy metals and 99% of pharmaceuticals, because yes, pharmaceuticals, other people's drugs are in our water because people don't dispose of drugs properly. All of these three things were really important to me. So if you go to the show notes, I've got a link there. Then you're going to use the code Deborah15 to get a special deal of 15% off your Barreau filter. I know you're going to be happy with it. One of the tests to see if it's working properly is they have you put red dye through the filter, and what comes out on the other side is clear, fresh, not red water. So honestly, this filter works. I hope you enjoy it. Use the code Deborah15. So you'd mentioned with prostate cancer, after doing this EVOS, that you see cases resolve. So what does that mean?
So here at the center, we never just do one thing, right? So we're taking every single avenue that we possibly can to get rid of any sort of cancer, any sort of disease. So we're using repurposed drugs, we're using IV therapies, we're assessing the whole terrain of the body, making sure that there isn't an overgrowth of microbes, of the candida, heavy metal toxicity, all those kinds of things. We're addressing the emotional component. So I have a wonderful prostate cancer patient who came up from San Diego, and he was driving up here a few times per week. And at the beginning, his wife was making him come, and it was pulling teeth to get him to do anything. He didn't want to change his diet. He didn't want to change his lifestyle. He didn't understand what the supplements were. He did not want to do EVOX. But through going through the protocol, I just had a call with him this week, and he is in such a great place. All his scans are clear. Everything looks amazing, and now loves all the therapies here. And he goes, if you want me to write any testimonials or speak to any male patients who are hesitant about coming here and getting therapy, I'm happy to talk to them and be an advocate for the center. And so it's not just the emotional component, but that was a big part. Is he was chronically stressed, and he had these emotional traumas that he never would have gone to a therapist to address. And through going through EVOX, he made a lot of progress.
That's a great story, and not something I would traditionally hear, at a big typical medical, hospital. You're not going to hear stories like that, because it sounds like you're really looking at the whole person.
Yeah. And we're trying to keep them healthy through treatment, which is something that's overlooked. It's not just about that cancer, because cancer is just a symptom. It's figuring out what is the disease within the body that then led to the eventual development of this cancer tumor that we now have to address, but we have to unwind that. And as I mentioned earlier, it's 8 to 10 years in the making. That's a long term.
It is a long time. So you have an incident 10 years ago, and maybe you don't fully process it. It's a trauma. And then 8 to 10 years later, that's when you might see some changes in your health when it comes to cancer.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's some pretty good motivation right there to just take a look at, have you forgiven people? Do you need to talk to a therapist to kind of just get some things out? Journaling, you mentioned, deep breathing. I would imagine all of these things can be incredibly helpful and supportive.
They do. They make a huge difference, and they should be taught in school, but they're not.
They're not. Well, one of the other modalities you were talking about that I'm a big fan of is the use of IVs. And I do a couple of IVs every year, usually before I do a big trip, kind of thinking, well, maybe this will just really fortify my system. So an IV, intravenous use of a huge bag of nutrients. I'll just kind of break it down like that for our audience. But I'm sure you have a better definition. Can you tell us about how you use IVs and what they actually are?
Absolutely. So we here at the center have a whole booklet of different IVs that we'll use for different situations. But like you said, it's directly intravenous, so right into the vein, into the bloodstream. You're getting a giant bolus, a big amount of nutrients that are all serving some sort of purpose. So for the average person, coming in, they might get a Myers cocktail, which is just a multivitamin IV, lots of the B vitamins, minerals, some vitamin C in there. We have MitoFit, anti-aging, pain IVs with homeopathics, all these different things. And all these nutrients bypass the gut. And so the gut is where 80% of your immune system lies, and it has to process so much every single day, from the toxicity that we're exposed to the food that we eat, that we have to stay alive, all these important things. But what happens nowadays is really due to toxicity and the microbes. We all have an impaired GI system, and most people have leaky gut. So instead of those tight junctions in the gut that are supposed to act as this good barrier that then keeps everything just moving through the chute, that's, our whole digestive tract, instead these large protein molecules are seeping through our GI tract, going into the bloodstream, creating inflammation. We're not able to absorb all these nutrients. We're full of toxins and we're nutrient depleted. So it's amazing that just by getting these nutrients through the IV, it can bypass that whole GI system and go straight from the bloodstream into the cells to really replenish very, very quickly. So the Myers cocktail and multivitamin B vitamin IVs will oftentimes really turn patients around when they're just feeling super depleted. One of my favorite IVs that we have here is called the Quinton IV. And so Quinton water is deep sea mineral water from the phytoplankton. And the concentration of this Quinton water actually matches the plasma concentration of your blood. And so you can drink it orally, and it's by far the best electrolyte that you can get. But we do it as an IV here. And so you do 150 milliliters of this Quinton IV directly into the bloodstream, and it replenishes all of your minerals and electrolytes. Really? And so it's incredible. And so it will revitalize patients. And one of the biggest reasons that it's doing this is that all of our cells and all of the whole body runs on voltage and these energy electricity. So that's how we measure the heart via EKG. Right. We measure the brain via EEG. We have the muscle conductivity testing, right? So we're testing in all these electricity ways, but then we're not thinking about the minerals and electrolytes for healing. So this is coming in directly IV to support the actual cell's voltage and function so that we can rebuild the rest of the body. Because if we don't have the basic foundations of nutrients, it's really hard to heal. Detoxification, healing, they're very energy expensive processes. And so we have to have the nutrients on board for that.
I want one right now.
I do too. I never make the time to go over them, but
I know. Can I fly down tomorrow and get a big one? And boy, it sounds absolutely incredible. And it sounds quite honestly kind of miraculous for a lot of people. I mean, you probably don't see a lot of, negative impact.
No, these really, are only beneficial. They can only build up and boost the body, the immune system. And that's really for most of the treatments that we're doing here at the Center for New Medicine and Cancer Center for Healing are all about supporting the body. Like nothing here causes harm or causes pain to the patient. We're just trying to bring the body back into balance.
Right. And that's one of the challenges with, I found with traditional cancer treatment is I got so many surgeries so fast, so much anesthesia, so many drugs. Oh my gosh, where I feel like it took me a year to recover and get my energy back. And it probably would have been really amazing if I still went ahead and did the traditional route, for me to also include some holistic modalities along with that, like the IV therapy.
Absolutely. Yes, we have patients that choose to go completely alternative, to combine the two, or, that do go completely conventional and then come up here to help heal and repair the body afterwards. And those IVs are really incredible. One of the best for the cancer treatments that we use here is the high-dose vitamin C IV. So we know that vitamin C is an antioxidant, and we have patients take it orally every day as an antioxidant, and really everybody should be taking vitamin C due to our toxic world. But when we do IV, we go up to 50 grams, 75 grams, 100 grams, which is a very, very high dose. And what that's doing is actually creating a little bit of oxidation, and it's going into the cancer cells and turns into hydrogen peroxide, which then kills the cancer cells. It's also boosting the immune system. It's very antimicrobial, but it's incredible.
Wow. So high levels of vitamin C can really potentially turn things around with somebody who's battling cancer. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. And that work, vitamin C, was Linus Pauling, correct? Dr. Linus Pauling?
It was, absolutely.
Okay. And then what does our FDA recommend for a daily dose of vitamin C?
So usually, I would say FDA commonly is like between 500 to 1,000 milligrams. Okay. We're starting patients usually at about 4 grams or 4,000 milligrams. And then IV is a whole different story. That's the 50 grams and above.
Right. But I think when we think about, what the RDA is telling us, like you should get this, you should get that. I mean, some of the guidelines are so old, like vitamin D was whatever the amount they suggest for vitamin D was really to help prevent rickets. And I think the vitamin C levels were something to help prevent scurvy, which we really need a lot more. They probably need to be updated.
Exactly. Those guidelines they're very outdated. So I agree with you. They do need to be updated, but they were really designed on what you need to survive, not what you need to thrive. And that's what we're trying to support all our patients to really be thriving in this, unfortunately, very toxic world.
Yeah, and our toxins that we're exposed to on a daily basis has dramatically changed. So I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I'm sure the recommended, daily dietary allowances have not been updated to, reflect all the phthalates and the fragrances and body lotions and cleaning your house. All of that can be pretty rough on the body.
Absolutely. And it's so hard because we do tell patients, detox your whole house and clean all these things up. But unfortunately, so many patients are flying here and they have to stay in hotels and just going to the grocery store. I mean, all these things are exposures. So yes, you want to create your little home bubble, but at some point we have to go out of that bubble. So we have to be taking precautions to constantly be supporting that detoxification.
Okay, well, that brings me to a good point, because you're right. We can't, like when I'm home, I cook 99% of our meals. I have very high glyphosate levels in my body right now. I just got tested. And so everything is organic and I'm very cautious. But what happens with people who are traveling a lot for work or for treatment, or they're eating in restaurants? Do you have, a couple of top tips that you would offer them?
Absolutely. So some form of liver support, I think, is really needed for everyone. And there are so many wonderful supplements out there. In very old naturopathic medicine, we had the philosophy like cures like. So it's gotten very popular nowadays to eat beef liver and, take liver supplements. Well, they actually are very helpful in supporting the liver and detoxing the liver because it's working so hard. So that's a great one. Vitamin C, I do really recommend for everyone. And then vitamin D to keep the immune system up, kind of those basic nutrients. Then just making sure that you're drinking enough water with electrolytes to help flush everything through the system, because our genitourinary system and kidneys are a major way that we detox. And then moving your bowels every day. And unfortunately, almost everybody nowadays is constipated. And so we do say if you go to the restroom less than, really 3 times per day, you're kind of considered constipated and things are not moving through. And everyone, when I say that at the consult, they all go, what? I thought one time a day was enough. But no, I mean, you're supposed to really go once in the morning and then once for every major meal that you eat. So it should be about 4 times per day.
Okay. So I thought, I'm just going to say it. I thought pooping once a day was checking that box and we're good. Mm-hmm. So we really should be pooping as much as however often we're eating a larger meal. So not just having an apple and a piece of cheese, but like a full-on meal. So if we're having 3 good-sized meals a day, we should be pooping 3 times
at least 3 times.
Because it's a great way to detox, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I am constantly recommending, coffee enemas to patients, because the other thing that happens is that if you aren't having very regular bowel movements, you build up mucoid plaque and a lot of the old feces stay stuck in the colon. So then your body's reabsorbing all of that toxicity. And so not only did it have to process through the liver the first time, but now it's recirculating and you have to deal with it a second time. It's important to move the bowels. Nobody likes to talk about it, but it's important.
Nobody likes to talk about it, and nobody likes to talk about the coffee enema probably either. Although there are people who, I will tell you this, such a goofy story. My husband's going to be either mad or I don't know, but so I came out one morning. I first of all, I'll preface it by saying my naturopath had said, because I had some toxins build up, she said, I think you should do this coffee enema. So I bought everything, but I never used it. And I think I might have been a little scared and I misplaced my instructions. But anyway, I come out one morning and my husband said, gosh, this coffee smells really weird. I said, don't use that coffee. That's for my coffee enema. He goes, oh my gosh, I cannot keep up with you, woman.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I have my little stash at home too.
I know. You got to have the stash. Okay. So I'm going to commit to trying it now. But yes, so you've given us some really great takeaways as far as, maybe increasing vitamin C, moving your bowels more often, staying hydrated. So is it okay to just drink plain water, or should we be adding things to our water to really help with our hydration levels?
So we have to filter our water and purify it because it is so toxic. I mean, the amount of pharmaceuticals that are in the water and all these pesticides, everything gets in the water. And so we do have to purify. And I often recommend a reverse osmosis. I know distilled water has gotten really popular. They're great methods of cleansing the water, but then you are left with dead water. And so your cells see that and it doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's why when you drink water, you're urinating all the time, is because it's not actually being absorbed in the cells. So we have to do something to re-enliven it, to structure it. And whether that's, using a water structure, which is essentially kind of recreating in a sense like a stream. So it's natural spring water, or it can be adding electrolytes to it. There are wonderful powders out there. A pinch of salt with minerals is wonderful, or just using trace mineral drops. But something has to go back in the water so that the cell can actually see it, identify it, and absorb it. I make the analogy of it's like trying to wash a dirty car and just spraying it down with the hose. Well, you get some of the gunk off, but a lot of the really old particles kind of stick in there. And so when you use the electrolytes and the minerals, it's actually adding soap to go in and scrub out all the old waste products of the cell and excrete it.
That is a great analogy, because I go back and forth. I mean, we're really good about filtering our water, and whenever I travel, I take the airport's so great about having the filtered water available, but I also do different filters. I've got different filtered water bottles, but I was really unclear about electrolytes, and I had a naturopath friend tell me, she said, you need that in there to make it stick, like it makes the water stick to your cells. Is that an accurate assessment?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the point of water, is to go in and kind of cleanse and detox. But if there's nothing in it to really make that process happen, it just goes right through you.
Which means you're just in the bathroom all the time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's exactly it. Okay. So you've given us a lot of things that I'm geeking out about, but I kind of need to process. But what I will ask is, what's one thing somebody could do today that would lower their risk of just about every disease known to man?
My gosh. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is exercise. So just some form of movement.
Okay.
Because that's going to support all, we talked about a lot of nutrients to take in for detoxification, other tools that you can do. But if you move, you are naturally detoxing. It gets blood circulating, which blood is what delivers all the good nutrients to the cells and gets the lymphatic system going, which is what takes out the garbage and all the waste products that we want to move. It helps to get our muscles going, which is really important for glucose disposal, of the amount of high blood sugar that we're seeing and insulin resistance. All those things are really climbing. And it really does help with sleep, because if we're not moving and exercise and detoxing, it's going to be really hard to sleep. So exercise would be probably my top thing. But then I would also say, circadian rhythm and getting back involved with nature is the most important thing. We are so far removed from the way that we naturally lived, the way that we naturally ate, sleep patterns. We are bombarded by EMFs and this technology all day, every day. Anything you can do to mitigate that. But, walking outside and grounding, at sunrise and sunset, you kind of hit all those different points that I just made. So if you can get them into your daily routine, I think there'd be a huge difference in the way that we all felt and the way that we dealt with disease.
And it's probably going to lower our risk of most diseases and make us just a little more impervious to toxins, would be my hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boost that immune system just to be more in tune and in line with the way that we were supposed to live.
Huh. And you know what I find interesting about these two suggestions? They're free.
Yes. The best medicine is free.
The best medicine is free. Oh my gosh. Dr. Natalie Greenberg from Center for New Medicine, thank you so much for your time. You just a wealth of information. Yeah. And your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Your story about your own, your own health challenges, which really drew you into medicine. I bet your patients just absolutely love you.
Thank you. I always tell my patients, your mess becomes your message. So whatever you're going through now, you're going to be telling everyone and spreading the word, which is all I can ever ask for, because I can only tell so many people and help so many people. And so it's a spiral effect that everyone's then helping everyone else. And that's what we want to make it, a whole community that we're all getting well together.
I love that. Spread love and kindness and encouragement. Thank you. I had a doctor years and years ago, and she told me if you're just drinking water to get hydrated, that is not enough. She said, you really need something to make the water stick in your cells. And I've been thinking about that for years, and I really haven't been able to find a product that I love. I mean, I think our most common one in our culture are things like Gatorade. And there's just so much junk in those products. There's the dyes, there's the sugars. And if it's sugar-free, then it's going to be sucralose or Splenda, which is basically the same thing. So I've been looking for a junk-free electrolyte replacement, and I have finally found one. This is a company that reached out to me. They're called Just Add Buoy, B-U-O-Y. Buoy is the product, and it's an electrolyte. What I love about it is it's flavorless. They're drops, so you just can put a couple of drops into your coffee or into a smoothie or whatever it is you're drinking throughout the day. It's got B-complex vitamins. It's got 87 trace minerals, which is absolutely incredible. Antioxidants, which I love the combination of these items. But what I also really love is their no list. So there's no sugar, there's no fake sugar, there's no artificial flavors, colors, you name it. And again, I'm a big fan of this product. I'm kind of new to the Buoy family, but I'm really grateful that they have offered me 20% off to pass along to you. And these products can be very expensive. Yes, it's an investment, but I'm giving you 20% off. And what I love about Buoy is that their product, their label, it's a really clean label. So I'm really, really happy with it. And again, I have been searching for a really long time. So I hope you give Buoy a try. The link for the 20% off, it's in the show notes. And they have just been such a great customer service driven company. I had a few questions. I emailed them. I got a response right away. So Just Add Buoy, give it a try. Let me know what you think. Hey, y'all, can you do me a favor today and go and leave a review of this podcast? I know that the more great reviews, wink, wink, emphasis on great, reviews that I get, along with more downloads and more subscribers, that pushes this podcast out to people who might normally not even find it. And the reason I started this podcast and my real heart for starting this podcast is that I needed this information. It wasn't available. And so I started a podcast so that I could be a blessing to others. So you're a blessing to me just by being here. And again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your positive reviews and all of the notes that you send me. And also just wanted to say, hey, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. And if you need medical advice, please reach out to your team. That is going to be just the best source for you because they know you. So again, I hope you enjoyed this podcast.